to make 2 finals in the year, to get fish out of the way, and that was my goal. Once I'm in 2, I'm happy. That's the year done, as pretty much. It's be a bit ridiculous to expect more than that, but so we snuck in that one. But anyway, with that out of the way, all I've got now is Maver to qualify on. And what did I have next after that? I had Barston. I had birthday Barston. I went to Barston on my birthday, which was a rare midweeker on a Wednesday. And I drew another good one in that. I want to say 59 I drew, which I always like that sort of area. Like it's sort of round the corner. The deepest area of the lake at Barston, 59. It always seems to be, it's quite consistent, especially if the wind's down there. There's a bit of breeze down there. Early in the year, that always seems good for a match win. Obviously, I'm not there for skimmer fishing or anything like that. You're there to win the match on these occasions. So I'm just on out and out carp fishing. That's other than the usual pegs, the 20, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. I'm always happy in that area. I always feel there's a few fish to go at. And again, on the day, it felt like there was. So I chose just to fish 2 lines sort of. I chucked a big feeder for half an hour at the start, see if I get a bite. I never had a bite on that. But then I just chose to fish 8 mils at, as far as I could feed them, let's say 30 metres. Well, just pinged a few 8 mils on that, and that were good. And for the first 2 hours, I probably had 40, 45 pound. And I think I had a couple of big carp, I had half a dozen big F1s and a couple of skimmers. It was really good, and I thought, we're going to push it here. And then, not a clue why, Old Lake went flat, or all my area went completely flat. And I think I had one more fish. I had one more fish in the last 3 hours. It just went completely terrible, and I caught nothing. I ended up with 40 odd pound. Actually chucked back, because the lad on the end had 70 pound. He had 6 great big ones, 70 pound. What won that one? Oh, Mark Stainsbury, I think, is it? Won that match with 177 pound on 124, which unfortunately it seems to be going that way a little bit in the big matches. At Barston, 124s with the right wind, it's nigh on unbeatable. But Mark didn't mess about. He got job done on that one match. Oh, I need to go back on Messingham. So I didn't mention who won that. A proper nice fellow. What's his name? Ian Fisk won at Messingham with 109 pounds. So it's proper, really made up for Ian. He's a nice fella. It'd be nice to see him in the final. What am I back on? Yeah, so Barston. So that was a bit of a waste of time for me. I enjoyed my time there. It was nice to be on a few fish for a while, and the dream was alive. But so that fizzled out, went to nothing. And then last up, I was back at my favourite. I was back at Tunnelbarn Farm. And that was a week ago on Saturday. And it had been quite weird leading up to it. There'd been a festival at Tunnelbarn there, like spring festival that they have. And it fished quite dicky. I mean, there was quite low pressure, and the fish were a bit confused at what was going on, because they wanted to feed, but the weather was very, very unstable. The pressure was, which for F1s, that's a big thing for me. That unstable pressure, they ain't happy with. They don't like it one bit. And it had been like that all festival. And then speaking to a few people, speaking to Matty Dawes, and I'd mentioned to Bennett as well, what they thought could win, and they were all in the 120, 130 pound gang. They thought that'd be enough to win the qualifier, which there's a hell of a lot of pegs. When the weight comes down to anything less than, say, 140-ish at Tunnel, there's a massive amount of pegs that you can catch that weight off with a sensible match, because there's so many fish in there, so you can do it off a lot of areas. And we were on good lakes as well. We were on House Extension, what else? High and Canal, I'm going to say. Yeah, House Extension, High and Canal. So I had plenty of room. I think there was about 70 odd on. So I had plenty of room, and it looked for a really good match. And my arm was still on form for that one. I went in the bag and I drew 29 on House, which definitely, without a doubt, is proper peg. You know what I mean? It's a mega peg. It's the first one onto the island on House Pool, over the bridge, and it's sort of on the end of the bridge. I was a little bit worried for whatever reason. 30 was in on the day, which is quite unusual. I've never seen 30 in before. Young Jordan was on that, and he doesn't mess about. But I was also a little bit worried that because of how the weather had been, I didn't have any different depths. You know what I mean? With it being open water, I've got an island that's sort of 20 odd, 25 metres, where I could find shallow water, obviously, but I didn't want to mess about with that. I mean, Tunnel's not a place where you need a rod to catch any fish in the summer months. It's all about short or relatively short fishing. But I didn't have any sort of margins towards the bridge. It was a little bit shallower down there, but I was going to have a lot of snags, so I had some serious problems down there. So I didn't want to mess with that. I had a floating thing, sort of a floating pontoon in my peg that you catch shallow under, but again, the same depth. And my right-hand margin, that was the one I'd sort of earmarked to fish. I could find a bit of shallow water, but I'm with Jordan, you know what I mean? We're very, very close to each other there. So I didn't fancy there being many fish on there. So I was sort of dictated with how I had to fish. I literally had, I had 4.5 foot on my top kit, and I had nearly 6 foot on my long line. They were the 2 lines that I had to fish on the day. I didn't have a choice. I just had to tick along and make them work and not make any silly decisions, because if I were to mess it up, I didn't have any different depths to move into to catch fish. So for that one, again, dead simple. With it being a low weight, for me, tunnel's all about, I love fishing hard pellets here. I mean, I go there to fish hard pellets. When the matches are in that weight category, I feel it's almost the best way, because shallow fishing gets a little bit moody. It's very hard to catch a big weight on maggots or casters shallow in that type of match when you've not got the space. So pellets just lead me to a nice simple match. So I had a bag of fishery pellets that I oiled up a little bit to stop them breaking down. I had 2 bags. I fished 2 bags. I probably used quite a bit of bait. 2 bags of formal fishery pellets, and I had a load of maggots. And I had my little pot again of pellets I'll talk about in a minute. And I fed maggot shallow on that pontoon, but I'm going to touch on that first because that was an utter waste of time. I went on it, caught a couple of rudd, caught a couple of stockies. It was just no good, so I'm not going to talk about that. But my main match was fishing short on a top kit with hard pellet, and then long at 14.5 with hard pellets as well, which they were my 2 lines that well, in the end, I fished them all day. Started short, caught a few. Then that fizzled out. I've started on my top kit, that's worth talking about as well, just to get onto the harder bottom. So that's something that people don't focus on enough at Tunnel Barn, is finding a nice bottom to fish on. So if you fish a little bit further out where you'd fish your maggots in the winter, sort of top 2 and 2, top 2 and 3, then you're on the really mucky, soft silt there. And if you try and fish on that in the summer, you've just got no chance. The fish are going to root it up, they're going to blow like mad, they're just going to make a mess and you're not going to hit clean bites. So with me already being out on a pontoon, just fishing to a top kit, that allowed me to get a bit of harder bottom. Still wasn't perfect, but it was better than I would have if I'd gone further out. So started there with hard pellets, caught a few, that fizzled out, went long, caught a couple on bottom, but immediately I was getting a few liners, so I went shallow, caught a few shallow, and by rotating on the deck and shallow, that ticked over lovely, like really well. I was quite happy with that. And then this pressure that I'm on about, it completely changed. We had a big thunderstorm coming. We actually had 2, and once they both passed, I'd never had a bite shallow. It was crazy, just that difference of a bit of rain going on the water, probably cooling it down, and the pressure change, it put all the fish onto the bottom or shorter. So there was nothing to be caught shallow after that. So luckily I picked on it quite quick, and I dropped the shallow line already, but I kept pinging pellets out there just to keep the fish happy on the bottom, and that proved a good move later in the match. But what it did go wrong, definitely, is I believe I fished a really good match for the first 2.5 hours, 3 hours. With 2 hours to go, Jordan's caught really well next to me. He's got it wrong, definitely, to start with. We've probably we should have fished each other's matches at different points. He's fished maggots to start, and that's not been right. But later on, he's bagged on maggot short. It's been phenomenal, which is quite unusual at that time of year to catch in 4 to 5 foot on maggot short. It's quite strange, but yeah, he was catching really well. So I swapped my top kit to maggots. Swapped over to that, give him a bit of bait there, and I caught a few on it, but I was miles behind Jordan's catch rate. He was catching 2 to 1 on me, and I thought, I just got it wrong by not feeding it a little bit earlier and not letting that peg develop. I sort of rushed it, gave it a few big handfuls, went on it, and it was just a bit scatty, but it did tick along. But without doubt, the most important moment of my match was with an hour to go. I went back on my long line on deck, and I swapped to an 8mm pellet on the hook, because it was all ripping up, it was all silty and horrible, but I swapped to an 8mm pellet, and in 4 casts I had 4 carp for 20 odd pound, which really put me back in the gang. I thought, right, I'm pushing it now. So we're probably up to about 110 pound at that point, and I carried on. Last hour I pretty much stayed long. I had another quick go short, caught a couple, but by staying long on deck, just with a big pellet, being patient, I had a nice spell at the end. I probably had 40 odd pound in the last hour. That got me in the gang. I'd say I finished that match with 135 pound. That put me in there. At the start, I'd have took that. I thought, yeah, that would be far off. But I thought Jordan was going to be close, and then Ross Harold was on 33 on the end. He caught a lot more fish than us. He definitely had numbers-wise, he was miles ahead of us. I was just hoping that his fish were a little bit littler. So the scales come round to us, and all the lakes' fish quite poor, if I'm honest. I think Dale was winning. Young Dale was winning off 22 extension with about 120 odd pound when the scales got to us. I'm sure he was. Yeah, I think he finished there too. Yeah, Dale must have been winning, and that was high canal and extension. He was best out of them. Nothing really had been caught on our lake. 100 odd pound was best. So I managed to put 135 pound on the scales. I was lucky enough to beat Jord. Jord weighed about 120, and then I got massively lucky on the last one. So Ross weighed 131, which again I was really impressed with Ross. He fished a really good match, but he just got unlucky with stamp that I've seen so many times at Tunnel Barn Farm, that you think someone's caught a load of fish, but they're just so much smaller. You can get pockets of different sized fish at Tunnel. So he'd been unlucky on the stamp side of things that cost him winning. So luckily I snuck through on that one as well. So that's, what are we on now? Middle of May. I think we're on 15th of May, and we're job done on the finals, which I can't believe that. So I was lucky enough to sneak it last year. I think it took me a bit long last year. I think it was about the end of June, but to get everything done by the end of May, it's just a joke. I'm just a drawback, definitely. To get that many chances that quick, I've been very, very lucky boy this year, without a doubt. But yeah, so we're sorted now. We've got Maver, golden reel, and fish hooks look fine forward to. And I don't really know what to do now. So if anyone needs a bank run or anything, then give us a shout. I'm not too busy for the next couple of months. But no, joking aside, next what we're going to do, I'm going to do MAM. So I like them matches. They're really good matches. Quite a few quids made for charity on them. For Dave Marshall runs them. Anyone in the Northwest, they're well worth a look. Them. It's a good final at Herrenbrook, that one as well. The match anglers matches qualifying series sort of thing. And I'm going to do Fish North as well. I'm going to have a little go at that Fish North that Barry Zimmerman runs. We're going to have a little go at that. So that's about it. Other than now, though, I think I'm going to be with me crazy mate's going to show me how to catch some fish shallow. I'm a bit scared what's going to happen today, but hopefully we'll catch up in a couple of weeks' time.